Weird things that happen in our polygamous cult, part 9.
We already kind of talked about how our cousin Jacob is currently serving a 18-year sentence for stealing $500 million from the government in tax fraud. His wife, one of his many wives, is also serving right now 6 years. Sally, she's also his second cousin, as well as his younger brother is serving 12 years, and his mom is serving 7 years. The judge said that because she had lived her entire life crime-free, then she would get a lesser sentence. Okay, they caught Jacob actually trying to flee to Turkey. They caught him at the airport and arrested him.
So when he was caught at the airport, he claimed that he was just taking his son and his new bride on a honeymoon, but no, he was fleeing the country, and he didn't even tell them. What's crazy is every single time he would travel with his son, who had the same name as him, he would have his son go first, so that if the name Jacob Kingston was flagged, they would grab him, and then Jacob could get away, right? So this specific time, I was told that his son asked him, oh, should I go through first? And he said, no, it should be fine. We've been fine so far. So he didn't, and that was the time that he was picked up. The reason he was on high alert is because he actually had, allegedly, people in the government in his pocket, and he, at one point, had heard that there was an investigation going on, so he came to Vegas to threaten me and asked me if I knew anything about it, and I said, no, I don't know anything because I'm not allowed to tell him, right?
You did know.
Yeah, I worked for him right before I left, and when I did leave, I actually told Amanda and everybody else that had left before me about the things that Jacob had told me. And if you guys have seen American Greed with the whole Jacob situation, Mary and Brian on there were some of the people that I talked to about my experience with him, and they ended up reaching out to an IRS agent who then came to talk to me and took all of the information I gave them to the FBI, which started a full investigation for years before he got raided and before he got arrested. But that was what kind of set everything in motion. And what's crazy is that Mary and Brian then went on to American Greed and shared my story.
They claimed it as their own, right?
Yeah.
Well, Mary specifically claimed that she was doing the things that you actually did.
I didn't watch the full thing, so don't quote me on exactly what she said, but she claimed she had a photographic memory, which she always told us as well. But she never had the memory, so how did she photograph the memory that she didn't have? Yeah.
So another piece of the story is that Levon has a 40-year sentence. Now, who's Levon? Levon's the only outsider in this mix. But basically, Jacob Kingston was diluting a lot of his biodiesel, and was also trying to apply for the tax credits because you get like $1 per gallon. And so he was paying people to dilute his biodiesel, and then he did get a customer to buy, I don't know how many gallons. It was a big shipment, and he went to go ship it to them, and when they got it, they were like, this is too diluted, like we don't want this. So then he's like, now what do I do with this biodiesel? He goes to California to try to sell it, and he meets Levon. And Levon and him become besties in crime, and they start figuring out how to get even more tax dollars with the biodiesel by making it look like that they're selling more by putting it through Levon's gas station. So they became partners in crime, but Levon was hustling the government, but he was also hustling Jacob because he told Jacob that, hey, to keep us protected, there's this umbrella policy of these men that are going to make sure that the government don't find out. So, but we got to pay them a cut of our money, so pay up. And Jacob was like, okay. He was used to giving his money to people for nothing, in order. He was used to signing his stuff away. Easy target. So anyways, Levon is serving 40 years in prison, and they're still, from what I was hearing, allegedly, Levon told Jacob that if he gets out of prison, then he's going to pew him. So they're not friends anymore, at least I don't think.
Another thing to note is that they were actually tipped off to the raid prior to it happening. So obviously, I told you guys that Jacob knew something was going to happen, which is why he threatened me, but that was years before the raid ever happened. They were tipped off because I was told that they had spent the last few days before the raid trying to get rid of a bunch of documents, and they were still able to find enough incriminating evidence to put him in prison for that long. So
yeah, and I know that one of the things that his mom got sentenced for was obstruction of evidence. So they must have caught her in some way, getting rid of the, I guess, tax fraud papers or whatever. But I think that this is another way that, because you think, how come his dad Daniel didn't get in trouble for this, or Paul? Because we all know that in the order you have to follow the one above another. So a lot of the stuff that they're doing in the businesses has to be okayed by the leadership or the one above. So we know that Daniel had his fingers in this business as well as Paul, but they were smart by not putting their name on anything. And I think a big part of how the government and the state has a hard time like tracking this stuff is because they have their own bank. They can kind of destroy evidence within their own bank. They have their own way of their own members getting the money out and their own system of filing it all. And if you guys want to hear more in depth on their banking system and how us members were able to access and or not be allowed to access our money, go to the next episode in the series.